Before I put it up on the screen, can you remember the 5 integrated elements?
People, processes, project context,
Principles.
Principles, thank you.
Practices.
Practices, yes. So people, processes, practices, principles, and the project context. Just remember that they're all P's as well. So in case you are thinking around the P's. What are the 7 aspects of project performance?
Sustainability, cost, time,
Risk.
benefits,
Scope.
Quality.
Quality, yeah, fantastic. What are the 5 characteristics of a project?
uncertainty, unique, change, temporary.
Yeah.
Cross-functional.
Cross-functional. That's always the one that gets left out most of the times. Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah, those are ones you mentioned. Just good to jig your memory every now and then. So I'll be doing that a lot. Let's talk about people briefly. So people refers to those who are working on the project and those who are affected by the project. So when they say people, don't think about only the people who are working on the project, right? The people who are affected by the project. And we talked about that earlier, that there will be people who will need to be involved in delivering a project, third party, etc. If you want, even if you're painting your house by yourself, you will still need to you might go to the shop, you might get the wrong one, you might ask a question here and there. I know that's not a very good example of a real project because technically we all paint our houses every now and then and so on. But a more complex project will be the ones that you are doing in your organization today, and you would imagine that there will be people who are waiting for the outcome of your project in order to benefit from it. So people is a very crucial part of Prince2. That's why you have it at the center of the Prince2 principles. The Prince2 integrated elements, the 5 integrated elements, or you could refer to them as the 5 P's if you want to remind yourself whenever you're thinking about it. Remember, I said the Prince2 had 7 principles, and I used the example of we all have principles. Some of us don't drink, take sugary drinks for whatever reason, health reasons. Some people don't eat meat. That is a principle that you have and that you follow as part of your everyday life. So what are the 7 principles? In theory, they are the 7 guiding obligations and the good practices which determine whether the project is genuinely being managed using Prince2. So somebody cannot say they are a vegan, but yet they're eating meat every day. So maybe so long as they've not redefined the meaning of being a vegan, then you're not a vegan, right? You can't eat meat every day and you say, oh yeah, I'm a vegan. When they tell people to raise their hands up, you raise your hand up, and somebody will say, but you're having at lunch, I saw you having meat, so it doesn't work like that, right? You have if you have a principle and you're following the principle, that defines it. So if you don't follow these 7 principles, you're not managing your project using Prince2. You're probably managing using something else, not Prince2. So one of them is called continued business justification. The other is, let me bring them up on the screen. Quickly, what do we think ensured business justification is?
That the cost of the project is not outperforming the benefits.
Cost is one of them, yes, because if it's about money, profit, and you're not going to make profit, then people would say, well, we don't care. I mean, don't need the project, do we? But other things as well, maybe you think about money.
Well, I mean, things might change and the project might no longer be valid, right? Another company takes you over. There's a change in direction. New technology comes, which makes the project no longer viable or beneficial or cost justifiable, whatever it may be. But
yeah,
it's just no longer a continual business need. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Or supplier problems like we see today, right? Given the changing landscape with China and various other things, political landscape maybe is a better way to say it.
Yeah. So there are
But
many.
also having engaged customers so that they don't lose the interest in the products you are delivering.
If you lose, sorry, I didn't get that. You said if you lose the products you're delivering.
No, I said also having engaged users or engaged customers, that they still have interest in the product that you are delivering or producing.
Okay, yeah, it could be around things like it could be the quality is compromised. They don't, the project itself is compromised as a result, and then the users obviously not, there's no justification for the project if it doesn't meet that specific quality. That sort of thing potentially could also make it unjustifiable. But I think, yeah, good points. If we look at all of the things that would potentially take us out of the ability to justify why that project should exist, whether it's financial or non-financial, whether it's technical, whether it's supplier related, whether it's user related, so long as it's not viable, then the project should no longer continue. And that is a principle within Prince2. If you say that you're going to continue a project that is not viable, Prince2 technically disowns you at that point as using something else and not Prince2. Okay, let's look at the second one. There's 7 of them. Learn from experience. It should be straightforward, but does somebody maybe let me see who has not spoken. Julian?
Yes, sorry.
Learn from experience. What do you think it's as a principle? What does it add in terms of value to the conversation?
Yeah, okay. I mean, from past you can improve yourself and the methodologies, or so what you did in the past project you can and especially what went wrong should be influence how you approach the next project. Yeah,
absolutely. What happened in the last project, you should learn from it and then bring it into the new project. It will be foolhardy to have all these learning experiences on past projects and people make the same mistakes again on a new project. So quite straightforward. Thank you, Julian. And then let's look at, I think either you can attempt this one. Define roles and responsibilities and relationships.
Yeah, it's very important that people know what they have to do, because if they are not certain about what they need to do, they can't plan for it, resource-wise, time-wise. So
yeah, and then people will be overriding other people, isn't it? Like
and also how they interact to each other, right?
Yeah. You will find on projects, and I don't know if it happens with your projects, but relationships are very critical. So when you have a relationship with somebody, no matter whether, sometimes you can say on your project, you can say, please, can you like help me just stay a little bit extra hours to finish this stuff? And the person is more likely to do it because they've had coffee, you brought them coffee, you made coffee, and just something that builds sort of trust and relationship with you. Then all of a sudden you're able to go a little bit extra for you. But then when the first time you're meeting them, hi, Steve, please, can you sort this out for me and stay for at least 2 hours extra? He probably might look at you and just smile like, that's not going to happen, right? Because sometimes just that little thing, because he's not obliged to do it. It's not like he has to go out of his way to do it for you. Yes, he might be a nice person and decide to do it, but relationships just make things smoother. So apart from identifying the responsibilities and the roles, in some cases, you're going to depend on relationships as well to deliver your project on time and meeting the performance targets that you have for them. Thanks, Ida. Manage by stages. Anyone? Just randomly?
Well, taking it step by step, I guess, right? They always say that you can fix everything or anything if you just break it down to small pieces that can be managed much easier than the full thing.
And if you already have a defined kind of time plan or something, then you have defined milestones where you can still consider if it makes worth or if it's worth it to continue if everything's going as planned.
Yeah, because you keep the word there as planned. You at the least you would have to spend time planning it, isn't it? You know, you wouldn't just go into execution. Just woke up in the morning, drank a cup of coffee, and went into execution. You know, you probably wouldn't do that. You would probably sit down and plan. Okay, yeah, because what are you executing? You're just going to be executing stuff and then realize, oh, actually, I'm making mistakes here, right? So you have to plan it, even if it's like, you know, if you have kids, you drop kids at school. You wake up in the morning, in your subconscious somewhere, you're like, okay, I'll drop this person, then I'll go to the shop, and then I'll come back to work, and then you're planning it first. So at least you would have a step of planning, and then you can have a step of execution. So managing by stages will be more effective than trying to deliver. That's even using the smallest project than just trying to deliver, wake up, and then you just are running helter-skelter. So manage by stages is crucial, and it's important from that perspective. So a Prince2 project is planned, monitored, and controlled on a stage-by-stage basis. These management stages are separated by what we call decision points. And decision points are usually agreed with by what we call the project board. The project board is the management structure that sits above the project manager, just to keep it simple. But again, these things will reoccur as we continue to progress. So what is managed by exception? I'll leave this one open as well to anybody. Managed by exception.
Well, this means that you don't escalate issues to the project board or well to the higher level management unless it is going beyond some tolerances. So you define how much scope time is under your responsibility, and as long as you stay there, you don't need to. Otherwise, you have to ask for more resources.
Yeah.
Leave room for flexibility, I guess, right?
Or for so the project board, who is you directly report to, will give you some level of tolerance to work with, because the idea of managed by exception is to allow the project board to get involved with other things whilst entrusting you with the day-to-day project management or delivery of the project. So they don't have to come in every day for your meetings. They don't have to call all the suppliers every day to ask them how far the work has gone. They entrust you with that delegation to deliver the project whilst working within a tolerance. So they're not saying that the flexibility is infinite. They're saying that, okay, let's agree a tolerance for, say, cost. So long as you stay within 50K plus or minus, we're happy. You don't need to come back to me every day and say, I need an extra 1K. I need an extra 2K. But the moment you step out of the 50K boundary I've given you, or you think you are going to step out of it, you forecast that you step out of it, can you make sure that you sign that off with me, or at least I'm aware, so that I can make that decision rather than you? But the day-to-day stuff, I'm happy for you to get involved with that. Go ahead and run with it. So that is the management by exception. The concept is that the people within those spaces are senior and might even be project board members on multiple projects. And so they don't have the time to do that project management day-to-day activity. So that word senior, in terms of senior in the organization, they could be directors, they could be assistant directors, etc. They sort of sit within that position. And that is your managed by exception. Antoine, do you want to try focus on products?
Focus on products. I think this is to deliver product as required. I mean, in new message, mainly we have a waterfall. So to deliver products as we say, meeting quality and as per requirements. No?
Absolutely, I would agree. A product within Prince2 that are delivering, it must meet the quality requirements. It must be clear what the product description is, and that would provide you the opportunity to determine what resources you need, the effort you need, the requirements, the dependencies, and the activities that need to be done. So,
is it this maybe a way of saying to keep your eyes on the goal, to not start to do something and then find your way, I don't know, like halfway through that you're actually achieving something else than what your initial plan was?
Good way to put it. Good way to put it, because your focus, if your focus is not on products, you might end up doing activities that are sound good and might, but that's not why you're doing the project. You might start jumping up all over the place. Like I said, with some organizations, there are certain things that are not priority to them, like sustainability. Some, not saying all, and you might end up like doing all these, attending. Is it called COPA or something that they did this year in Dubai? You might spend money sending your project manager there. How that delivers the project, nobody knows. But you're just creating activities that sound good politically in your organization.
Exactly.
So focus should be on the products. Define what the product is. Let there be more clarity on the quality. Let there be more let there be more clarity on who needs to deliver, when they need to, things like that. Get clarity. What does quality mean for the client? Do they mean that it should be 25 mm thick or 30 mm thick? That's far more important to the project delivery than any of the other political stuff that might be surrounding it. So that's basically their principle.
I think for us, Vlad, I see it, as strong design. Let's do a strong design, because this will ensure. I mean, of course, after we'll have the verification, etc., that come after. But if you come up with a strong design, you focus on, and you think of the system. So delivering a robust design that will ensure a strong system, and this will lead for, verification, then would you accept the quality requirement? But yeah, me, I see that focus on product. I think of system and deliver a strong system at design.
Yeah. No, focus on products is critical from that perspective as well. But last one is tailor to suit the environment. Remember, we talked about the project context. Your environment might be different from mine. In many cases, even in your organization as well, your environment or your project environment certainly will be different because you're working with different people. I used to have a chap who he would come in working at 11 o'clock on one project because he had that flexibility, and he was much older, and so he used to say that I cannot wake up before 9 o'clock. It's not going to happen. So, but he's very talented, so you had to use him on your project, right? You can't tell him, oh, you came in, he walks in, he walk in at about 10-ish, 10:30. So even though he was the only person who had the liberty to do that in the whole project team, but he would just walk in and he would do that. That was, I had to, because I understood his, resource wise, he was the only internal staff that had that level of skill set. If we needed more staff, I needed to go and hire somebody else outside, which I didn't have the budget for. So I had to work, and that's part of project management, right? I had to work, and if he gets upset, he won't show up for like 3 days. So, so he had that liberty to do that. But the thing is, I had to tailor the environment, or I had to tailor. Yeah, I was almost going to say that I had to tailor the environment to suit him, because he was the one running the shots. But I knew that I really needed him, so I didn't want to like make him upset or something. And then he then shows, because he was almost close to retirement. He had been working there for like 30 years or something. So he knew everybody who had been in that organization. He was, whatever it was. But I knew that was the environment I was faced with. And because he had that, you had several people who were almost getting to 65. They were almost getting retired. And so a lot of them were like, you guys are young. We're not that young. We don't want to come in within that. So I tailored everything to suit the environment. So what I did was I would move all my meetings to fit into when I knew that he was around, and the other guys were around as well. The other much senior colleagues were around as well. I would make tweaks within that environment to suit the project itself, because there was no point me setting a meeting at 7 o'clock and I was, there were only 2 of us in the meeting. So things as small as that to more complex issues and more complex situations. The last principle there is that you should tailor your project in terms of size, in terms of complexity, in terms of project context, in terms of organizational context, in terms of delivery method. It should all suit your project. So as Steve mentioned earlier, he's doing a project which would require some agility, so some level of agile project management. All of that together should be should provide you with, once you understand the project you're delivering, you can say, well, this project potentially will be better off being an agile project rather than otherwise. So that's the key thing in that from that perspective. So how about the practices? We've talked about the principles. We've talked about the 7 of them. How about the practices? So briefly, the 7 practices describe the essential aspects of project management that must be applied consistently and throughout the project. The 7 practices are the essential aspects of project management that must be applied consistently all through the project. We have the business case. You must apply the business case consistently all through your life cycle of your project. Can anybody link this to the principles? Which of the principles this emphasizes this practice?
Business, the ensured continued business justification, I guess.
You tie it to ensure the continued business justification. But let me just put a caveat there that all 7 principles we mentioned applies across all aspects of or all the integrated elements. So when we start looking at the practices, you see what I mean. But when you hear business case, you know it's about justification of and the viability of the project. The second one will be organizing. There is a unique principle as well that ties quite closely with organizing.
Define role and responsibilities.
Absolutely, and relationships. Yeah. So define roles, responsibilities, and relationships. That is about organizing. How do you? It's about making sure that the team is as organized as it should be. Plans.
Yeah, manage by stages.
You could say manage by stages. Yeah, you could tie that closely to manage by stages. You must have a series of plans, and we'll talk about these plans when we go into the plans practice, when we talk about it specifically in its module. Quality. Which principle closely aligns with this?
Focus on products.
Focus on products. You're trying to make sure that you get the right requirements, you get the right quality delivered as well. So quality enables the team to understand the quality attributes of the product as well as the requirements to deliver them. Another one will be risk. It addresses how the project deals with uncertainty. So all through the project, you must consistently apply these to make sure that risk is consistently managed throughout the project. You don't want to be in a situation where you were at risk of being flooded and then suddenly you are flooded without you having anything in place to respond to that risk. If risk is uncertainty, what are issues?
Unforeseen uncertainty, I guess.
Is this still an uncertainty though?
No, it's materialized now.
Yes, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah. If somebody was hitting their head on the wall, I don't know why anybody would do that. And you were saying, look, there's a risk that you're going to hit your head that you're going to get a headache. That is a risk. But once the person comes and says, oh, can I get some paracetamol or some ibuprofen? That's an issue. So at that point, they've got the headache and then they have an issue. If somebody is driving roughly or recklessly and you warn the person, there's a risk that you get into an accident. That is a risk because it's uncertain. The person might manage to escape, but then if the person gets into an accident, that becomes the issue itself. So issue relates to change within Prince2. So it's one that you should be aware of as well. So anything that introduces change from the original baseline is considered a risk to an issue on the project as well. Obviously, in addition to other things, which we'll talk about on the module itself. And then we have progress. Anybody help with what they think progress will introduce on the project, or what a project progress means from a practice perspective? Essential aspects of
Understanding where you are, given where you're supposed to be in the plan.
Yes, that's pretty much it. How much progress have we made? Where we are? Where did we plan to be? Are we there? If we're not there, what's the difference between where we are and where we thought we would be? So that is about measuring progress. So these 7: business case, organizing, plans, quality, risks, issues, and progress, all will tie into all aspects, or these 7 within the practice aspects of our project management journey that must be applied consistently. So at no point do you, within the project life cycle, not check your business case. At no point do you not make sure that your team is structured and organized as it should be, that people know what they need to do. At no point should you not have a plan in place or plans in place to keep track of your work. At no point should you not have quality metrics agreed and being followed. At no point should you have risks which are becoming issues, but you have no control over them. At no point should you have issues and a clear pathway in identifying, assessing, and controlling change requests on your project, or managing issues or responding to issues on your project. And at no point should you not have a system in place to monitor the progress between where you agreed to be, or where you thought you would be, and where actually where you are at the moment, or at that point in time. These are all the 7 Prince2 practices. And then let's look at the Prince2 processes. We'll go on break soon when we finish these. So just for information, like I had said before, you have 7 processes, and this is what's important in terms of terminology around processes. You have, let's move the diagram a little bit with the arrows. So before you start a project, there's usually a mandate, right? There's something that triggers the project. Either there's a need from a client, or potentially something comes up which you need to introduce to the project. We talked about change. So it's either a new change to something that exists, or you're bringing in something completely new. Just to help you understand this diagram, at this level here, there's usually at the top, you would have the customer or you have the client. It's not on this diagram, but just for information. And then within the project management team itself, you have the people who are sat at the top of this layer. They're called directing. You call them project board, or people within that space. Then you have the managing. That is where the project manager and the people who are supporting the project manager or ensuring the project management compliance takes place, they sit in this second layer. And then the last layer are the people who do the actual work. So you could have the people paying for the work, or the senior users and suppliers up here. You would have the project manager and maybe project management support teams, as well as project assurance, what is called compliance, sat here. And then at this bottom, you would have the people delivering the work. So you'd have like the masons, you could have the painters, you could have the plumbers, all of them do the work. The project manager sits here, and then the person, probably the customer, or no, not the customer, the person who's managed the project board sits here. And at the top, you might have either the business layer, customer layer, just depending on where the project is being commissioned from. The very first step, and then obviously on this side, you'd have all the stages, but the very first step is usually pre-project, and it's pre-project because it's not part of a delivery stage. And once there's a mandate, the mandate triggers what you call the starting of a project process, and that initiates the question, do we have a project? So remember where we looked at the example of an organization doing a check on their processes. It might be that at the starting of a project process and at the end of it, there is a project. It might be that there isn't a project. So that could be part of a pre-project phase. So you get a mandate, you trigger something called starting of a project process. And the objective is to get to a point where you agree if there's a project here or not, if the project is worthwhile or if it's not. At the end of that phase, you create something called a project brief. But remember that each of these will have their own modules. So I'm not spending too much time on this, but just breaking it down initially for you. Once the project is reviewed and you create something called a project brief, you then go back to the project board, remember this layer, and you give them the report and your results. They might say, sorry. So they might say that the project is not worthwhile, cancel the project. Or they might say proceed with the project because it's worthwhile. But the key thing is that that triggers the next process. Assuming that they are happy, do we have a project? Yes, we do. The first stage appears in your project and they authorize you to initiate the project. Pretty much initiation is about planning. Here you're trying to determine whether the project there was a project, it was worthwhile, whether the project you have given is worthwhile. Here you're trying to plan the project because they agree it's worthwhile. They give you the resources and the time to actually plan the project. That is where you define something called a project initiation document, a PID, if you've come across that. Because you've started off your stages, which the first stage is usually the planning stage, also called initiation stage, you start to encounter the next process here, which is called managing a stage boundary. When does managing a stage boundary occur? Between any two stages. So once you are about to approach another stage and you are currently in a stage, you would have something that I can call a gate. So it's a boundary between two stages. And it requires that, like you would walk into a gate and show your ID card and they let you in. It requires that you use that as a management point to engage with senior management to make sure that you have the right, they've gone through all the right documentation as requested, and they're happy for you to proceed to the next stage. Again, that's why the arrow goes back up to agree, for them to either agree or disagree. If they agree, they authorize the project to begin. Remember, all this while, the project itself has not yet been authorized. It has been planning, which you did here, and it's also been determining if the project is worthwhile. This was the initiation stage. You can have multiple delivery stages, but always remember, as part of an exam question, you must have at least two stages. There must be the initiation stage, which is where you plan, and there must be subsequent delivery, at least one subsequent delivery stage, which is where you deliver the project. So there must be two stages for every project within Prince2, at least. So assuming you got stage authorization for stage, so this first stage, this subsequent delivery stage 1 here, you start to control the stage. This is where the project manager does the managing of the project, the heart of the day-to-day project management. And you have another process called managing product delivery. This is where the team manager, or whoever is doing your work or helping with doing the actual work itself, accepts the work package from the project manager, delivers the work package, and hands it over to the project manager. So if one of your team managers or one of the people working in your project was delivering, maybe painting part of the building, they would receive the clarity in terms of what are they providing for you, what is the scope of work they're providing for you as a project manager, and then they would hand the work back to you. That's what it says. The project manager gives the team manager authority to deliver the work package. Assuming they hand it back to the project manager and it's all looking good, the team manager will most likely experience potentially another or project manager will probably encounter another managing stage boundary. Remember, there will always be stage boundaries between two stages. Again, that is you engage with the directing the project board for the next stage plan. Obviously, with this diagram, you only have one more stage left, which is the last stage there. If they approve it, you enter into your final stage. You control a stage because you deliver what is within that stage. You manage the stage. The delivery team delivers the work. They write the code, whatever it is. And then once that's done, you trigger the last process, which is closing a project process. Take it to the project board for approval. Project closed. So the 7 processes are starting up a project process, directing a project process, managing a stage boundary, initiating a project, managing a stage boundary, controlling a stage, managing product delivery, and finally closing a project.